Hey! Even before I'm ready to go. Thank you for using Command Tie. Definitely cool. Command Tie lets me know people are here. And I can say, hey, you're here. But you guys were here before I was. That's crazy. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Yeah, give me a second. I need to set this up. We're doing design workshop again, which is we get to make a thing. We're going to make a small thing. Let's make a small thing. What's going on? This cartoon ape is in a jungle. And I do need to take a second. Excuse me. Pardon me. So, this cartoon ape is in a jungle, and we play games, but we also like to make games, like the game down below, which is called SMOL Towers. And the game down below is for chat. It's not for the bots to play. The bots are showing it off, but it's for chat to play, and you can play at any time you want. That's what it's here for. Today, we're going to continue this series that we're calling Design Workshop. There's another series we're calling Design Chat. This software development stream category that we're using is helpful because it lets you know we might do some code or some art or something. But we've been using it and calling it Design Workshop because the games we are working on don't need code right now. The game down below is good, doesn't need code. And the other game we're working on, which is called Shuffle Wars, also kind of has the code already done. We're kind of good. So while we might use the art category to do artwork for that game, the code is done. So we thought, well, maybe we should use this category for something else. I just got through yammering on and talking for 3 or 4 hours, so that's why my throat is not happy right now. But I can do this. Today, what we're going to do is continue work in the game engine that we've done so far. And briefly, we made pixel art in this program called GIMP. It's like Photoshop, but it's free. I mean, so is Unity. We made some pixel art and we put it on a square. Doesn't sound like much, but that's what I mean. We do these small steps, right? Excuse me. These small steps include making some pixel art and bringing it into the engine. So yeah, we made this pixel art of a coin. And we put it on a square and we put it in the engine. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but that was just day one. Since then, we've done other things. We got this object that looks like a coin to move from here to here. Again, doesn't seem like much, but that's the point. One small step, right? Because then we said, well, can we get it to move over time, right? One little bit at a time, one frame at a time. Can we include game time as well as game space, you see? We did. So we animated our game object, this little card, this little square with a pixel art thing on it, yeah? This is cool. Then we said, well, could we get a different kind of animation? And last time we came back here to GIMP and we did more pixel art. We made frames of animation. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, these frames of animation. And then we have code that not only now is able to animate our game object and move it over, but we have code that is now set to show one frame and wait a little while. And then, sorry, I guess I'll just say wait. And then it goes to the next frame and waits a little while, and goes to the next frame and waits a little while, and goes to the next frame and waits a little while, and then goes back to the beginning. So there was a little bit of rules we had to figure out we wanted. This led to getting our script to do it. This is done in code. It is C#. That's the language, the code language we're using. But we're doing it one step at a time. This series is about doing that, one step at a time, a small thing. Try to do it in an hour. I think I spent longer than an hour last time. So what are we doing today? Well, these are super common things people want in their games. Having pixel art you made and bringing it into the engine is a very common thing. Having your game object move or repositioned is a very common thing. Having it move over time is a very common thing. Having multiple frames of multiple images switch, as in animation, is a very common thing. And that's cool. What's another very common thing we could do in an hour? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because we haven't talked at all about something that a player could do to control this, right? In our other series, Design Chat, we talk about a modest amount of player control. And in this Design Workshop series, we haven't done anything that one could call player input to our game system. So that's what we could do today. Let's imagine, for example, you press the space bar. Right? We'd like something to happen in the game when the player presses the space bar. Yes, this is super common. That sounds like a good thing. What could we have this do, right? Let's start with that. Let's start with the rule that we want to see, right? I press the space bar. What happens? Well, given that we have this coin and it can animate, it can move or it can animate frames, why don't we do one of those? I propose we wait for the player to press the space bar, and when it does, it will cause our coin that looks like this to spin around, right? What I mean is we already have the animation of this coin spinning because we did 4 frames of animation, and right now it's just continuously spinning. That's cool. What if it held right here most of the time? But whenever the player pressed the space bar, it would turn around once and then hold here again. Let's have it spin around once when the player presses the space bar. What this is showing, it's a very small thing. We could do it in an hour for sure. What this is showing, though, is a input. Can I get a key press to do a thing? I mean, given we already have a C# script that is spinning the coin, can we get this control, this very simple control that says the player can control when the coin spins around once? Okay? This rule will translate into the code we need to do, right? Spin around once is the rule when the player presses the space bar. It's basically going to say if space bar is pressed, right? And that's the rule. If the space bar is pressed, spin around once. That's the rule. If spin around once is really just playing our animation, so cool. What we really need is, the spin around once actually should lead to a brand new thing we haven't done yet, which is just hold. And I guess we have done that, because originally this coin just sat there like this. So hold on that frame, okay? Oops. All right. I feel confident we could do that in an hour. In fact, I think we can do it in less than an hour. I mean, should we try? Sure. But what else, right? Because don't we also have some movement of this game object? You know, this coin is here, but really it's a square. It's an invisible square with some art on it. That's what it is. Now, it looks like a coin, but that's, you know, it's the illusion, right? It's really a game object in the engine. And we do have another script that actually moves it over, you know, this way or that or whatever. But right now, we have to, like, tell our script what to do. Like, this script that animates the coin frames, it just spins and spins and spins. And we tell it, like, how much to hold on each frame, how long to wait before it goes to the next frame. This script that moves the game object, like left, right, up, down, whatever, this takes a direction and a speed. And we can change those while the engine's running. That's fun to play with. But what about the player? How does the player control this? Well, I think we're all familiar with these keys, right? What if we said the A key and the D key can now control the coin, right? What if we could move left and right based on whether the player has pressed A or D, right? If A, right, then move to the left, right? If D, move to the right. Sounds reasonable. Can we do all this? Yeah. This is a small step today, but, I mean, what we're really talking about is this input. Otherwise, right, if we're not pressing anything, I'm going to continue with this rule now. If we're pressing A, move to the left. Or if we're pressing D, move to the right. If we're not pressing anything, you know, if neither, I guess, is how I say that. Then stop. Right? Don't move. Right? Wow, can we do all this? Yeah. Yeah, we could do this. We do this today. We do this in an hour. Because we already have moving. We already have animating. I think we can do this. So let's review the rules. If the space bar is pressed, spin around once and then hold. If A is pressed, move to the left, otherwise stop. If D is pressed, move to the right, otherwise stop. That sound reasonable? I think it's reasonable. Let's call it reasonable and let's move on, yeah? Because our whole goal is, like, take little tiny steps. The game you see down below, Small Towers, was made with lots of little steps, just like this. No joke. And notice that as we make a little step, we test. And then we make a little step and we test. So let's try that. Let's try taking small steps to do this set of rules. And we'll test as we go. Let's do it. Here is what we have so far. Now, this has been done previously, so it's not just coming for free. We did it ourselves. This is one game object. It is a flat square. If I kind of get my avatar out of the way. What we see when we kind of look at it on the edge is that it's a flat square with some art on it. It's like infinitely thin. If I rotate it like this. Yeah. It looks like the coin is spinning, but that's just the animation frames that we made, right? It's not really a 3D coin. Obviously, yes? Okay. We have a script on here that is going through these frames. In fact, you can see if I go to the right preview, let me see which preview is correct. Well, it's supposed to be that one, I guess. Boop, boop, boop. No, it's not showing me. I'm trying to show this material. There's a material preview. My goodness, excuse me. There's a material preview that should be showing these frames, but I mean, I could just do this. You can see one frame at a time, yeah? Okay, so there's one script that's basically just doing this. Just switching this image on the material of the coin, that's all. We did this last time. It was a lot because the script needs to do things like a timer for each frame. That alone is like one small step. There's a thing that it needs to remember, which is which frame are we on? And then when it gets to the end, it needs to loop around. So that's like another small step. We had to access this material on this renderer right here so we could change the image. And we learned about an array, which is just a series of something, in this case, an image. We're using that here. So we did a lot last time. That's not the only thing on this game object, because we've done so much already, right? The other script moves the coin. Well, it can. Right now, the speed of this move is 0. But we can change that. Let's make it move a little bit faster, and you see it moving to the right. And we can make it move negative, and suddenly it moves to the left. Because what's happening is, this script says, give me a direction, in this case, positive x, which is this direction. And then I will move that direction at this speed. So we could even say, like move up, because I could make this a 1, and that means move in this direction. And so now, when we play this, if I move the speed from 0, it begins to move up, and I can move it negative, which basically means move down. You see? Okay. So that's what these two scripts can do. What we're saying is, cool, let's make a new script, actually. We could make a new script, and, well, that actually involves talking between scripts, and so instead I will go ahead and modify these scripts. I'm going to have the move script listen to the keys A and D, because the rule is, if if the A key is pressed, move to the left. If the D key is pressed, move to the right. Yeah. And I'll modify the other script, the animation script, so that it doesn't animate. Right now it just animates all the time. Imagine our frame time were like, I don't know, 999. Well, then it would be frozen. Imagine it were 0.1. Well, then it rotates real fast. I think the setting we have is like 0.2. This is 0.2 seconds, or a fifth of a second. And it looks okay for a constantly spinning coin. What we're going to say is the rule now is this script waits for the space bar, and then it will rotate once. This kind of looks like it's rotating over and over again because this number right here is saying once you get past 3, go back to 0. That's the only reason it is turning over and over and over again. We could say, yeah, don't do that. We could just say don't do that. In fact, we might need something else in there to have it check to see if it should be animating or not. And just wait until the space bar is pressed before that is turned on. So it's animating. But once it gets to the point where it would go back to 0, we should just turn that off. Right? Let's do one thing at a time. I think the first thing was the space bar, right? So let's let's modify this animation script. If you recall, we had this move coin script, and it was fairly straightforward because really we had one line of code that does the moving every single frame. You can go back and look at that. But there's our move direction and move speed. These are the two things we were playing with. And this is where those two are used. This says take the move direction and the move speed and insert time, and there we go. We are changing the position of this game object every frame. Every frame this is called, and so it repositions the game object every frame, whether it needs to move or not. If it isn't set to move, we just don't see it move. But then its move is based on the direction, the speed, and time. That's what we've done before. The other script, the one that animates the frames, like I said, was a little more involved because this keeps track of how much time it should wait per frame. There's a hidden variable that we set up to actually do the waiting. This says, how much do you want to wait per frame? This actually counts down a small amount of time until it's 0 and then switches the frame. We did this last time. This keeps track of which frame we're currently on. This we don't really need to touch because all it's meant to do is go find the material that we are changing the image on, and it's already doing that. So we're kind of good there. In fact, so's this. We don't care about these frames anymore because they are also doing their job. This does, on every frame, count down that timer. And if it's time, in other words, the time is up, go ahead and reset the timer. Increment the frame and set the texture. Now this is the part that we should be playing with, I think, because here's the part where it says, if it's more than the maximum number of frames, that's when we should set it back to 0. This is still true, but we kind of want it to stop animating. We don't want it to do this anymore. In fact, we might not need it to count the timer down at all. This means that maybe every single frame we don't do the timer. Why? Because we're going to wait until the players press the spacebar. The new rule is, I'm going to write down the rule here in comments. If the player presses the spacebar, spin the coin once. That's the rule, right? Okay, which really means play the animation, yeah? I say there's going to be a hold after it plays once, which really means don't animate. So right now it's just animating. And actually there's a new thing we want, which is don't animate when this is done, because we're only going to play it once. Cool. How do we do that? Well, this was a hidden variable, and I mentioned this last time, that we needed to keep track of how much time is left, while this is keeping track of how much time should we hold for a frame. This will stay the same. This is something we configure. We say 0.2 seconds or something. This, however, is actually counting down. It starts at 0.2, but then the next frame it's a little less than that. And at some point it's 0 or less than 0, and the time is up. And so we can reset it. So this needs to stay the same. This needs to be able to change. That's why we have a separate one. But we don't need to actually see this in the engine to configure, say, frame time, current frame, that kind of, we don't need to necessarily see this. In fact, we could probably make this private as well. But it's nice to see, just to show how this is working, the fact that this is working. This is a private variable, and these are public. That's the difference between these two. I see frame time, current frame, coin mat, and coin animation. But I also see timer here, right? Okay. Here's our coin. Here's our script. There's frame time, current time, coin mat, and coin animation. Wait, where's timer? Well, it's private, so it isn't showing up here. It's not meant to be accessed here or other scripts. And we haven't really talked about one script talking to another, but that's a very important step we will take later. This script just handles one thing. This script just handles one thing. At some point, you might want scripts to talk to each other so they can coordinate. We'll do that later. But here's my point. These are public, but the hidden variable, private variable, timer, is private. We don't see it. I want to make another one of these because this idea of spinning once and stopping means I want to remember, wait, are we supposed to animate or not? There's a type of variable, type of thing that our script needs to remember. Our scripts do two things. They remember stuff and do stuff, right? This is one thing it needs to remember. It's how long to hold each frame. This is another thing to remember. This is an integer. This is a type of number that is a whole number, and it just counts which frame we are on. It's another thing we're kind of remembering. It's another thing we're remembering. Well, this we're also remembering. This is like time. It's a decimal number. It is how much time is left. Well, there's a different kind of variable, a variable type, that is made to be yes or no. It is made to be true or false and nothing else, which is really handy. In this case, we're going to use it. It's called a bool. It's a strange name. It's short for Boolean. And it means this type of box, if you will, holds data that is only one of two things. It's either true or false. By default, it is false. And that's perfect because we would like to say, yeah, I want to remember whether or not we are animating. We're only going to animate and play this spin of the coin once, and then it's going to be, we're not animating. So are we animating, or is animating, is a good name for this variable because it kind of reads like what we're remembering. Right? Is this animating? Yes, true, or false? No. So I'm able to make another variable. It is private, so we're not going to see it in the editor, but it is able to remember something, true or false. In this case, we're going to call it isAnimating so that we can keep track of what it means. In this case, it's going to be false until we want it to be true because the player pressed the space bar. Okay? And then it's going to be false again after we spin the coin once. In other words, after all of the frames have been played and it goes back to 0. Based on how this already works, there is something that says go back to 0. And there is something that says count the timer and switch the frame if the timer is less than 0. In fact, it kind of starts up here. Right? This whole update function, which is called every frame, does two things apparently. One is the timer, and then a block of stuff if that timer is up. And that's really all there is. Now, there's a lot of stuff inside that block of code, but what if we just didn't do anything in this update function unless we should be animating? This entire script is all about animating, but what if we don't want to be animating? Then we shouldn't really be doing any of this, right? I say we can make that happen pretty easily, because if we are animating, we should just do what we're doing here. This is already animating. It's set up to animate. But now I want to stop it from doing this, and I think I can stop it right up at the top here. If you notice, these things kind of start at the top and go line by line on the way down, which is good to know. First of all, it's not all at the same time. But also, we have a way of interrupting it, like right here. If not animating, do not run. I could, like, stop, like, get out, right? Now, how do I stop, right? Well, it's interesting that this function is called, and we'll talk about functions a little more later, but there is a key word that means don't do anything else in this function. And what it really, really means is as if it had gone all the way through and gotten to the end of this function with a curly bracket ends right there, that these two curly brackets are paired together, gets to the end. What it does here is called return. We haven't really called a function, so the name return won't mean much right now, but you could think of it like end. Like, do this until the end, and then stop, right? Well, that word is called return, and we can use that keyword right here. This, however, would be odd to just return here. Now, we can use it, but it would be odd because it means we're calling this function all the time, but it never goes beyond this, right? And this suddenly actually has a problem. Unreachable code detected is this green squiggly line. Visual Studio is saying, hey, did you mean to do that? Because that's weird. It is weird. We don't mean to do that. Notice I said if we are not animating. That's what's missing. We can say if, just like we did here, this condition if is the rule is if we are not animating. So in other words, is animating equals false. Now, this now is a condition. We would only return if is animating is false. And you are probably looking at this like, why did he put two equal signs here? It's important to note, we can use a single equal sign, and it means assign this value to that variable. Put that amount in that box is what that means. And that's true down here as well. It's even true here. That's exactly what this means, and that's true here. But these operators, the symbols inside the parentheses here for an if statement, for example, are conditional operators. This is technically called a condition. And this means something else. This is effectively saying the statement, please make timer equal to whatever's in frame time. Please make current frame equal to 0. It's like a statement. But this is asking a question. This asks the question, is animating equal to false? So a double equal sign is different because it asks the question. It's important to note that you could actually do this. That technically assigns the value false to the variable, right? Make is animating equal to false. And in fact, Visual Studio is telling me, hey, you probably didn't mean to put this here. Yes, Visual Studio, you are correct. The rule, if we're not animating, stop, is now implemented by saying if is animating is false, then return. Return is a keyword. We haven't used this much. We haven't talked about functions much, but we'll see this again later. It basically means stop, so that works. I'll just note it here. What this means is don't animate. Now, we could test this right now because the default value of this is false. So it'll get to update this is false and return, and it never will run the timer. It will never update the frame. It will never change the material. Let's test that theory. I'm going to just hit play. What we saw before was this coin animated immediately. Let's see. Play. Okay. Well, it's not animating. Are we sure it's running? Well, let's use the other script to just kind of confirm that it is, in fact, running. Yeah, it's running. I can move it around, but it's not animating. It's frozen. Well, actually, good, because that's kind of part of the rule that we need to do. Cool. Let's keep going. This had two parts to this rule, right? If the player presses the space bar, then spin the coin once. Implied in that rule was stop after that once, right? So we got that done, actually. And spin the coin is already happening. What we don't have is the if the player presses the space bar. There's our input. There's our thing for today, right? If the player presses the space bar. Notice I use the word if. It is a rule, but also that's a handy keyword. We used it right here. Let's do it again. In this case, we're going to check to see if the player presses the space bar. Then is animating should be equal to true. In other words, assign the value true to it. Okay. Oops, I like reflexively put a semicolon after it. Right? Because if is animating is true, then it's going to skip this, right? And it will do the normal thing, which is to animate. Cool. Let's try that. Let's try the if part. We've done that. What we haven't done is anything with actual keyboard input. That's the new thing for today. Something we've done that was like it, something that was very similar, is this time thing. This time is a capital T time with a dot after it. Technically, this is a class. What it means is there's something cool in that we want to use, and we can get into it by this dot. But first we need to label, where we need to find this thing by name, and this name was time. There's another name that is super useful and with cool stuff in it. It's called input. Same thing though, it's a class, and we can access things inside it with a dot. And notice it turned blue because it is a class keyword for sure. Look at Visual Studio trying to guess what we're trying to do. It's funny how it comes close sometimes. What we can do is say, I'm going to try. Now, look what it says, get key up. It actually means releasing the key. And the key code dot escape. What it's suggesting is the escape key up, which is odd. Actually, that's a strange suggestion, but I'm going to look at get key and see what else is there. Is get key down. What does get key down say? We can, while it's here and giving us these options of things that are inside input, I can hover over this and maybe it'll tell us get key down. It returns true during the frame the user starts pressing down the key identified by key code enum parameter below, whatever that is, returns true. There's that word return again, by the way. This is a function call we're doing right here. We're saying go and see if the player has pressed a key this frame, the frame that the user starts pressing down. Okay, and if so, then come back and say true. It's funny because we're saying if. And if it returns true, then that means, yeah, they are pressing it down, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. This is a very common thing. Get key down. Okay, cool. This next part is part of a function. All functions have these parentheses. Some don't have anything after it. Some, like print, had some stuff inside it, like stuff you would print to the console, like text. This has something different. It says, like Visual Studio is suggesting keycode dot escape. There's that dot again. Are we accessing something inside a thing called keycode? Yes. Yes, actually we are. Should we just type keycode and dot and see if we can find space? Yes, let's do that. Let's go. There it is. Space. The space key. Cool. Wait, is this actually checking to see if the space key is pressed this frame? Yes, that is exactly what this is. This literally says if the player presses the space bar. That's what this is. It comes back true if they have this frame. If they started to press it this frame, this is true. If not, it's false. So if it's false, we're just going to skip it and we just do other things. If it's true, we said please make is animating equal to true. In other words, is animating equal to true, like this, with the semicolon at the end? Yes. Now, there's something interesting about this. We had if statements like this, and then we put these curly brackets on it. And I told you about these curly brackets after if statements. Okay? Technically speaking, I don't need this curly bracket here. I don't need to do that here. Why? Well, lazy programmers don't want to if they don't need to. And here is one line after an if statement. That's the only time that's okay to omit the curly brackets. You certainly could include the curly brackets like I did. And if you have more than one line like this, you absolutely need the curly brackets. Why? Because it says if this is true, then do all of this. If you didn't put the curly brackets, then it only does the first thing. If this is true, do the first thing. If it's false, still do all this, and that would be wrong. That's not what our rule is here. So we could have curly brackets like this. Okay? Same thing, and it works just as fine. But we don't need it simply because, like this one, there's just one line after it. Technically speaking, it is the same as this, as if it were one line of code, because it kind of is. But it's easier to read this way than we typically do. In fact, for readability, you might say, I will always do curly brackets. And that's fine. Actually, that's easier to read, right? So I'll leave it like that. That's fine. Because it doesn't matter either way. These are just single lines. But like right here, I think we're about to change this to be multiple lines. And I want it all to happen if this is true. So let's just keep that in mind. First of all, let's test. Because we haven't even tested this spacebar thing yet. Right? If the player presses the spacebar, set is animating to true, which technically should mean it goes back to spinning around again. Should we test that theory? Heck yeah. I'm going to hit play. And again, it does nothing. Now it is running, but it's not moving. And I can move. Yeah, that's for sure. So it is running. But it's not animating. What if I press spacebar? I'm going to click inside the game panel, actually. And then I'm going to press spacebar. Ooh, there it goes. It's animating. So it didn't animate until I pressed spacebar. Technically speaking, we kind of did it. Today we have player input. That's cool. Okay. So, but we said we want it to spin once and then stop. That's new. Okay. One second, please. Okay, so that's new, and we'll do that in 1 second. Give me 1 second, please. Okay, thank you. Hey bots, what's going on? Bots are building small towers. Let's go back. What we were looking at was code. Whoa, crazy. Do it. And what we were just testing was the fact that our code now detects if the player presses the spacebar. And we know that because it wasn't animating and then it was. In fact, we're looking at this new bool kind of variable that's remembering, are we animating or not? And it's using it because we're checking to see if it's animating, and if not, then we just don't do the animation stuff. So we're kind of already doing something new, which is not just detecting that the player pressed the spacebar, but we're using this, really a checkbox, whether it's checked or not, it's true, false. We're using this to determine whether or not we should be animating. And we're already seeing that. Check it. Oops, not this. That. If we are playing it right now, it's not animating. But then we can press the space bar, and it is. So we're already seeing the true and the false, both sides of it. So we're seeing this happen already. Now what it's supposed to do is spin around once, or looks like it's spinning around once, and then stop. So we haven't done that yet. Let's make that happen. This says, yeah, you should be animating. And this says, if you're not animating, stop. So we've kind of got these things happening already. By default, it is not. And then we press the space bar, and suddenly it is moving, right? What we're missing is turning this back to false again. We haven't actually assigned this to false anywhere. By default, it starts out false, but here we're just asking, are you false? Somewhere we have to be setting this back to false somewhere. We haven't done that yet. If we look at the spinning coin animation, it's really just changing the frames, like here. And technically speaking, it goes up to a certain number of frames. And if this number ever got to 4, there isn't actually a current frame, or there isn't a frame index 4 at all. And so before it tries to access frame 4, which doesn't exist, we catch it. We say, hold on, if you're more than 3, then set it back to 0. This is why it loops and loops and loops and loops. That's what this rule is about. Well, let's modify this, because we would like to now set this stop animating, right? Go ahead and set it back to 0, but stop animating. How do you do that? Well, we have a Boolean variable already, is animating, is set up to go. And if we just set this to false, that will stop animation. I mean, that's what it does in the beginning. That's what it should do now. Should we test that theory? Let's test. I'm going to hit play, and per usual, it does nothing. I can click in the game window. If I don't click in the game window, it doesn't know that I'm trying to be the player. It thinks I'm using the editor. But anyway, I click in here, and then I can press space. Ooh, it did the animation, but then it stopped. Do you see that? I'm going to press space again. There we go. There we go. Check it out. So the rule was press the space bar and the coin spins once. Hey, that's input. Player input is the space bar, and it's modifying the rules of this script so that it doesn't just continue to spin and it doesn't start spinning. It effectively stops after one spin. Cool. So I can keep pressing the space bar, I guess. Okay. Cool. Well, that's one of the things done, right? And how we did that was we asked about this class called input, and the function was get key down, returns true during the frame the user starts pressing down. In other words, if I hold it down, it doesn't matter. It's just going to care about the first frame. Let's see if we can do something similar here, because the other script, move coin, just has this move direction and move speed. What should we do with this? Well, I think we should also check the input on update. This update function is called every frame. This start function is called only once. This would actually be a terrible place to check input, because there's only one moment it could detect any input at all, and then it never gets called again. This update function is called every frame, so it's a great thing for time. It's a great thing for input. Let's do that. Let's do that in the move coin script. We're going to look to see if input, I don't know, get key or get key down or something, can get the A key or the D key. Here's update. I'm going to do this on the move coin script because it's the one that handles moving. And again, if A key is pressed, move to left. If D key is pressed, move to right. That's our idea. I think there was an extra part to this rule, which was if neither key don't move. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good rule set. These are rules. And notice I have if on every single one of these. Well, that might translate into if keywords in our code. Let's see. I mean, first of all, if we look back at what we've done, that's smart. We should. This does use an if, right? Because every frame we might or might not have pressed the space bar, right? This could do the same thing. Let's see. If. And there's the parentheses again for a condition. Sure. Inside the parentheses, we're going to see, you won't mind if I put some extra spaces in there so it's easier to read. The computer certainly doesn't mind. But I'm going to say input again, because that was a good one. And there's the get key down thing. In fact, it's thinking space at this point. It probably just knows that we just did that. Excuse me. There we go. I'm going to hit dot again and see what else is here, because when I hit dot, I'm asking for all the things inside this input and seeing what I can use, what I can access. Okay, it says get button up, get joysticks name. Well, there's like lots of them actually. There's tons of them. There's the get key down that we just did actually. What is this get key? What is this? If I click on it, this tooltip pops up and it does say some similar things. It says returns true, okay, while the user holds down the key identified with the key. So these are different in one big point. This is returning true the frame the user starts pressing down. This says returns true while the user holds down the key. So these are slightly different. Let's try this one, see what happens. Get key. Otherwise it looks kind of the same. You see this get key, code key thing? Let's try that. Get key. And it has these parentheses after that. You see that? All functions have those parentheses. And interestingly, the input for that function is what goes inside parentheses. Now I'm retyping the parentheses, and it gives me more information about it. That's why. But I'm going to do the same key code thing and the same dot after that we did before, because we were able to find space pretty easy. What, can we find A pretty easily? Oh, there it is. A. Actually says the A key right there. Right? You mean that's it? Yeah, that's it. Again, this returns true. Okay, so that's if true or false, right? If it's true, then we want to do something like move to the left. Okay, let's do our curly brackets, because I don't know how much we need to do here, but moving to the left. How do we move to the left? Well, I know that our coin is set to move to the right already. And so when we increase the speed positive, it starts to move to the right. What if we just move to the negative? Can we do that? Sure. Let's make move speed equal to something. Let's say negative 0.1. Okay. You saw me put this little F there, and I mentioned this last time. And if I don't do that, it thinks it's a different kind of variable, not a float, but something else. It thinks it's something else. So unfortunately, this is just weird, but Yeah, if I need to type in a number, I need to put in that F for float variable types. And this is a float, so this has to be a float too. That's where I'm going to assign it to. Hey, if the A key is pressed, move to the left, I think this might move it negative. Is that good enough? I don't know. Let's test and find out. It could be all wrong. We don't know. I'm going to hit play. I'm going to click in the center because that's how it knows that I'm being the user and playing. I'm going to get rid of my avatar. So it's not animating and it's not moving. But real quick, I'm actually going to select it while it's running. I'll collapse this. Okay, so this says the move direction is to the right, but the move speed is 0. Okay, so this is where I'm going to click in the game window, and then I'm going to press A. Ooh, it's very slowly moving to the left. It's true. And you can see the move speed has changed to be negative 0.1. That's what we just did. That's what our A key did. If I keep pressing it, doesn't matter. If I hold it down, doesn't matter. It's going to effectively keep resetting it to 0.1. And there it goes off screen. Bye-bye. Okay, I'll hit stop. And it goes back to the center. So this was 0, but when I press play, click in the window and press A, this now sets to -1. That's cool. See, again, input, right? What else we got? Well, we haven't quite finished these rules yet, right? Now I say this next rule looks a heck of a lot like the one for A. It's just move to the right instead of the left, and it's the D key, not the A key. Could we be bold and just copy this? Yeah, go for it. I'm going to copy this. All of this with the curly brackets and everything because it all goes together. I'm going to put it right under our comment. Now, this code doesn't say if the D key is pressed. It says the A key. Can we change this to D? Yep. In fact, if you really wanted to, you could undo the dot and retype it and search for D just to make sure it's there. Here it is. So now this actually is going to detect if the D key is pressed. The problem is it's going to do the same thing as if the A key is pressed, and we want it to be positive, not negative. In fact, I think it's a little slow. Can we just bump this up a little bit? Let's just make it 0.5. Negative 0.5 or positive 0.5. Is that all? I don't know. Let's see. Let's test it. We could take as many guesses as we want about what's actually going to happen. It's better to just test and see what happens, right? I'm going to press play. Not animating. It's not moving. I'll click in the game window here so it knows that I'm doing input. And now I'll press A. There goes to the left. I'll press D. Oh, there goes to the right. Hey, is this kind of moving? Yeah, this is totally moving. In fact, I can hold it down too. And I don't think holding it down really matters in this case because all we're doing is setting that move value once. This script is already set to continue moving every single frame. You can see the number change from negative 0.5 to 0.5. See that? I'm pressing A, D, A, D, A, D, A, D. Yeah. Cool. Input, right? But we said, hold on. We said if neither is pressed, there's more to this rule set, right? Yeah, this one right here. If neither is pressed, don't move. Is there some kind of if that is like nothing is being pressed? Well, no. Actually there isn't. But there's more than one way we could do this, by the way. I have put spaces here and I didn't put spaces here. Does that matter? No, the computer does not care at all. You can go ahead and do it just for readability, but it's the same thing. This looks the same, but like, how can we get it to not do either of these, right? This literally will set it to this and it stays that way. In fact, the only time it would change from this is if we did this. But the rule is, if you didn't press either, can we see if maybe if this and if this is both false, then we, yes, you can. But like I said, there's more, you can actually do that. But there's more than one way to do it, and I can think of an easier way to do this. What if we just assume that we are not moving first, and then check these two things and let it change? In other words, on every single frame, let's just set this back to 0. Now, if they are holding it down, cool, because it'll set it negative 0.5 or 0.5. Otherwise, it'll stay at 0 and doesn't move at all. So in other words, just by putting this rule up here instead, we make this a lot easier. We don't really need to do anything else. We can just say, you know what, every single frame, set move speed to 0. F. I know, the F is weird. The F is weird. But this says every single frame, set this to 0. But then, if you are holding down A, move to the left. If you're holding down D, move to the right. Now, if you let go, cool, you're not doing either of these, and by default, it is set to 0. Should we test this? Psh, you know the answer to that. Of course we should. I'm going to press play. I'm going to click in the window. I'm going to press A. And I let go, and look, it just stopped. I'm going to hold down A. Ooh, now it's moving. I'm going to let go. Boom, stopped. I'm going to hold down D. I'll let go. Okay, I'm going to hold it down. Okay, I'm going to press A. Okay, D. Okay, A, D. Look at this. It's under my control. I can move it left or right. In fact, look at this move speed. Go from 0.5 to 0 to negative 0.5 to 0. Anytime I let it go, right? What if I press both? Well, logically, it is set to 0. Then it is set to negative 0.5 because the A is checked first. And then it is set to positive 0.5. So can you guess what's going to happen if I hold down both? Yeah, the last thing it does is set it to 0.5. We're also holding down A. But the order of these things is what matters. And so it is going to respond to D. Can we change that so that if only one is pressed, then it moves? Yeah, we could change that, modify that, absolutely. But you know what we needed to do today? We needed to do one thing. We kind of did one thing. Actually, did more than one thing. But we did one thing. Today, we said, let me control the coin. The coin has player control now because I can click in this window. I just maximize the game window. And I can hold down A or D. Sorry, A or D. And I can press the space bar. And I can do all of this. And when I press the space bar, it flips around once. And when I press A and D, it goes left or right. So wait a minute. We got pixel art animation. We got move animation. We got player control. Wait a minute. This is starting to look like a game. Yeah, man. This is what I'm talking about. That's a good thing to get done today. I would like to keep doing one thing a day, because these things are something you can do. If you're watching Twitch on anything more than a mobile device, you have everything you need. Unity is free. In fact, the Visual Studio thing to edit code is also free. It can be added onto your install of Unity. You can literally ask your Unity hub to modify your install of Unity to include Visual Studio, and it's no more than just double-clicking the script at that point. GIMP is also free, and so making the pixel art bringing in frames, making the game engine objects, making scripts, and then having the scripts implement rules that you like, boom, yeah, we can start to make some games now, right? One of the requirements that we've been talking about in our other series, Design Chat, is modest amount of player control. Today, we did player control. Right? Cool. All right. Enough playing around. Hey, bots. What's going on? You playing around? Bots are playing Small Towers. Because I am a nerd, I'm going to see if perhaps the bots can tell me the stats. What's going on, bots? Tell me the stats. The stats tell me that the bot players are, they've made one tower, they've made a wizard, and the wizard cast a couple of spells, and they have 7 upgrades, plus other things, like the average match time is just over 7.5 minutes. Good to know. The longest match was almost 40 minutes. Whoa. That's a long match. Hey, if you think this is interesting, watching a cartoon ape make art, make code, make games, cool, then follow and be notified, because we do this stuff. We also play games. Don't be confused. We also play games. Playing through Portal 2 right now. But the whole point of this stream is to show that anyone can do this. With free software and a few simple steps, you can put these small steps together and make a whole game, just like the one down below called Small Towers. So follow and be notified, and when you show up on stream, please use Command Tie. Command Tie lets me know you're here, and I actually forgot to do the pinned message I normally do, like this. I normally do that. But do that, and I can say, hey, you're here, like Cracked Cornbread did. All right, yo. Have fun, do well, be good, stay safe. See ya.